everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is officially 2025, which is kind of crazy because 2024 went by very fast, but also very slow at times. And y'all, the dichotomy between the first and second halves of 2024 is absolutely insane. I'll get into it in a little bit, but first half was pretty much the worst, and then the second half was one of the best halves of the year we've ever had. So this video is dedicated to recapping the year in full. That includes life events, as well as, of course, all of my reading stats for the year. This is the first year that I've truly read as much as I do now throughout the whole year, so that's exciting. So I will definitely be getting into stats with some graphics, as the title says, so stay tuned for that. But I will be starting with kind of how crazy this year has been in terms of what's been going on with us, as well as travel, concerts we've gone to, you get the full recap, and then we'll dive into all things books as well. So I guess if you want to skip over the stuff that means a lot to me, then you can. But then I will wrap up the end of the video with looking back at my 2024 reading goals and also talking about my 2025 reading goals. So there's a lot to do in this video, but I don't think it'll take that long. So let's just get right into it. I have my trusty laptop here with my notes of the year, as well as the graphics I am looking at while you look at them, so I know what I'm talking about. But we're gonna start with the kind of big events that happened this year, starting with the bad and the ugly. So basically in January, we found out, well, actually, let me backtrack to the day after Christmas last year. Kaylin found a lump in his armpit, went to the doctor, and they recommended going to get a ultrasound to see, because breast cancer runs in his family, like to see if it's breast cancer or something, figure out what's going on, because there was no other symptoms associated with it. And so, as you can see where this is going, not a great path, but I will get there. So in January, he went in for the ultrasound and a mammogram. He actually had a mammogram before I did, which is kind of funny to me. Through the ultrasound, they found one of his lymph nodes was swollen, so they decided to do a biopsy, which happened, I think, mid-January, mid to early January. And so we got the results from that like a week later, so that was not promising. That it wasn't a quick turnaround like we were told, and the results did come back that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of blood cancer, and so obviously that was not ideal, and kind of everything became awful, and I panicked. And what I do best is I plan. So as soon as I found out, I was like, okay, let's find a doctor, let's do all this stuff. So I did what I did best to make myself feel better. Meanwhile, obviously, Kaylin's going through it. So very awful start to 2024. We found a great doctor. We saw like a doctor right away just because we wanted like more information, but he wasn't our actual doctor. So we found another actual doctor under his insurance, and he was great. And we planned to start chemo at the end of February, and we did. So everything kind of moved very fast, but it did take like about a month to like get him into chemo, which is quicker than usual, I would say. Like I wanted to just like, let's do it. I don't want to wait a long time, obviously, because cancer progresses. So he did his scan initially before chemo, and we found out he was at stage 2 or 2A. I guess A and B, the differences are like symptoms or no symptoms, because he had absolutely none of the typical symptoms other than just the lump or the swollen lymph node. So it was good. It wasn't like stage 3 or 4, which spreads like further down the body. So we were happy with those results. And then he was only told to do chemo, no radiation, just because of the nature of it being a blood cancer and can't really target every single lymph node with radiation. So he was assigned 4 rounds. Yes, 4 rounds of chemo, which each round is 2 treatments every 2 weeks. So he had a break in between each treatment, so it wasn't the worst experience. And luckily, Kaylin didn't react as strongly to the chemo as other people did. He Obviously, the first few days were not great, but he didn't run into the typical symptoms. He kept the majority of his hair. I think if you could see the first video that he was in, that's kind of like what his hair looked like, which he still kept a decent amount. We thought he was going to lose it all, and he was very worried about that, so we were very happy that he was able to keep that. But now his hair is obviously like way more fuller, and we didn't realize that until his hair grew back in, how thin it was. But halfway through, he got a second scan, and that one looked like everything was working, going in the right direction. Things were getting smaller, and so that was promising. And then he had 2 more rounds, so 2 more months after that, so a total of 4 months of chemo, and then had his scan like 3 weeks to a month after that to make sure all of the chemo drugs have like left his system and done what they need to do. And we found out that he was in remission at that point, which is very exciting and very happy news. So as of now, he is officially in remission. He's gone to the doctor a couple times for checkups. He goes in like every 3 months for now, and they'll make sure that things are looking good. They won't do scans, which is kind of annoying, but it's also like, it's a lot of radiation to put through someone's body to do multiple CT scans a year. They don't do more scans as preventative measures, so we just have to like make sure things aren't getting swollen again and just keep track, and he'll get checked up regularly. So things are good. And that happened, so remission happened in early June, and so that obviously right at the half of the year mark kickstarted our great half of the year, where I'll tell you where we went, and you probably know where we've gone for some of them because I've done vlogs on it. But I ended up starting this channel at the end of June after everything, thought I might as well do it because you never know what can happen. So I've hit my 6 months on booktube now, which is exciting. I think I'm at like 98 subscribers, which is like almost close to 100, like 2 subscribers away. And it's been sitting there for a while, but it'll get there eventually. I'm trying not to like focus too much on the numbers, but also trying to do things to make sure that I'm getting seen and stuff. So we'll see. It's only been 6 months, but I've made a lot of great friends on here, and I've really, really enjoyed my time. I've read some great things. I've filmed some content I've really enjoyed, and yeah, I can't wait to hit my year mark eventually, but we have 6 more months for that. And then, of course, the biggest excitement of the year was our engagement in November. And that was kind of the perfect way to end this year because it was started so rough, and then now we can celebrate each other and our future lives together after everything. So very, very excited to marry him eventually. But like I said, I think we're aiming for like fall 2026. So right now it's really stressful and just trying to find our wedding venue and book that, because I want to do that and be done for a while. But we have very differing opinions, so it's been a wild ride already. I understand how complicated wedding planning can get and how stressful it is. So we're just trying to get the main piece done, and then we can chill and have fun and enjoy being engaged for a while. So that is kind of the big life events that have happened this year. And now we can move on to the fun graphics, because I didn't know how to put a graphic together for my big life events, because it's kind of weird to put like a graphic for chemo. So let's move on to travel. So in February, after we were figuring out when he should start chemo, it was around the time of our anniversary, which is like February 21st. And so I thought we should go away for the weekend before he starts chemo, to do, our chemo moon, maybe like, baby moons, like before the big event happens. So we decided to go to Catalina Island, which is very close to us. We just have to drive down to Long Beach from LA and then take a ferry over to Catalina Island, and it was very cute, as you can see. I try to post all the sunset pictures I took from all of these, but I realized I don't have a sunset picture for one of them, which is Big Bear, but we'll get to that in a bit. But Catalina is just a very cute little island, has a little marina, very, very walkable. You can rent golf carts to drive around. There's not that many actual cars there. We did some biking. I struggled very hard with biking, and we learned the lesson to do e-bikes, and then that's what we ended up doing in Switzerland. But yeah, it was a very nice trip to do right before all of the craziness where we can't really go out. During chemo, had to mask up just because we couldn't get him sick, and so that was nice to do before that. And then obviously after remission and to celebrate, which we weren't sure we would be able to go because we didn't know if he would have to do more treatments. We were able to finally go to Africa, mainly Botswana, and I have a whole travel vlog up. You can go look at that if you want to. It was one of the best experiences of my life and Kaylin's, and it was a great way to celebrate his health. And that was with all of my family except for my brother and sister-in-law because they had just had a baby. And oh my god, I totally forgot to include my niece in my big life events. So while Kaylin was going through chemo, my sister-in-law gave birth to my niece. That was in end of April. So that was a really fun thing to celebrate with family while he was going through chemo. And we were able to be there, which was nice. And that was also a big part of my year. So going back to travel, after Africa, we had plans to go to Switzerland and Lake Como. We had these plans the year before, we just hadn't scheduled it. And luckily, with all of the chemo and cancer, everything worked out time-wise, and so we were still able to go to Switzerland and Lake Como, and obviously there's vlogs for those two as well, so go check them out. And those were incredible experiences. That was nice to just be the two of us. That's the first time the two of us alone have been outside the country other than Mexico, which, do I count Cabo as very outside the country? Like, it's Mexico, I know that, but it's so close to Southern California. So that was really nice to travel together, figure out how we travel together. As you know, I am a big planner, so I planned that trip to the T, and I was very happy with what we ended up doing, and it was very relaxing at the end in Lake Como, and we had some romantic time. We had some time to read and enjoy some wine and watch this beautiful sunset. I mean, I think this is one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen. So that was in October, that trip. And then more recently in December, which I also have another vlog about, which apparently I'll have vlogs for everywhere I go because it's fun to vlog travel. But we went to Big Bear with some friends for a weekend, and Big Bear is kind of a lake mountain town in, I don't know the name of the mountain range, but the mountains in Southern California. And so it's a very close, easy destination to get to for a weekend. And yeah, it was not too cold. We did some bowling, you can check out that vlog as well. And that was a nice way to kind of cozily wrap up travel for the year, because knowing next year we really want to keep it chill and relaxed and not as expensive, because we did so much travel this year and we want to take it easy a bit and save some money, because we're obviously getting married, so that is a big thing. And there'll be planning happening this year. So our only big trip that we're planning for next year, or this year officially, is going to New York City, because I went to school there and lived there for a while, and I wanted to show Kaylin around, see some friends, and I haven't been in a few years, so I want to go back. And we might be visiting family in other states that live there. So very chill year, hopefully. We'll see what happens. And the last thing to recap before we get into all the fun book stuff is the concerts that we saw this year. Most of these were with Kaylin. I think only one of them was not with Kaylin. But I also realized I completely forgot about another concert that we went to, but it was kind of like a jam band concert. It was Oteil and Friends. Oteil is from the Grateful Dead, or Dead and Company specifically, I believe, which Kaylin saw with his friends at the Sphere in Las Vegas. And so I totally forgot that graphic, but I thought I had 8 and I didn't want to add another one. So Oteil and Friends, yay. So starting out, I think we only started seeing concerts around May, kind of closer to the end of his chemo treatments. He is a big fan of Waxahachie, so we went to see them. Then I think the same week we also went to Extraordinary Heroes, which is one of my favorite bands. I actually saw them in Korea originally at a music festival in the pouring rain when I was in Korea last year, or May 2023. Then we also went to Paris. We had also seen Paris last year because they were co-headlining with Poppy, but this time around was their own concert, so I wanted to go see them again, even though their set list was basically the same. I'm a big fan of Paris. One OK Rock we went to, this was more in October. One OK Rock was my second time seeing them, and that was in October, and we got to take one of our friends and my cousin as well to see them that haven't seen them before. One OK Rock is a Japanese band, but they sing most of their songs in English. They're really great. And then we went to see LCD Sound System, me for the second time, and then Kaylin for, I don't know, the fifth or sixth time. Kaylin and his friends are very big LCD Sound System fans, and they're quickly turning me into one because it's always a fun time. So we saw them. And then Jordan Rakai, which is one of my favorite artists, who is based in the UK, but I do believe he is Australian, came out, and we saw him in a really cool small venue called the Fonda Theater, and it was just such a vibe. I love his music, very soulful R&B. Check him out as well. He's really great if you want something chill and calming, and or good background music as well. And then of course, as you know, I went to see Aurora, which was very exciting as well. And then to top off the year, this was early December, I went to another K-pop concert with my cousin, who also loves K-pop as much as me, but he is more of a girl group stan, and so we went to see one of his favorites, and it was fun. It was a fun time. I knew none of the songs, but I still had a great time. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We are finally getting into book stats and recapping my year in books. So this year, I surprised myself and I read 89 books. I didn't hit the 100, but I wasn't trying to hit the 100, though that would have been nice, a nice even number that 100 is. And so I am pretty impressed with myself that I read 89 books, because I think last year I read 43. And that was mostly like half of the year I started reading as much as I did now. And so I guess that makes a lot of sense, very similar to like half of 89. So I guess my cadence has kind of stayed the same over time. So I'm happy with that. I didn't really fall out or go too far into things. And so I think 89 is a great number. I'm very proud of that. The 89 encompasses like the DNFs and graphic novels and short stories as well. So they're not like 89 full books, but more 89 pieces of writing or literature. And that includes 3 DNFs, obviously, which is not as many as I thought I did. I thought I did more than that, but it was only 3. So I'm proud of myself for that. But I'm also proud of myself for actually DNFing, because I think it's important to put down a book and not force yourself to read it if you're not enjoying it. And then I've also encompassed 8 genres. And these are more high-level genres, not the subgenres that we can get into, and I'll take you through a genre breakdown as well so you can see what those 8 genres are. I do have like a subgenre tracker on my reading tracker, but I didn't use it as often, so I didn't want to like go back and redo all of it for 89 books. That would have been too long. So this is my overall recap. So let's get into how many books I read each month. So as you can see, August was definitely my biggest reading month. I read 11 books, which I think is insane. And I was doing 2 reading vlogs for that month, I think. Yeah, I was doing 2 because that was the month I was reading the TBR that Kaylin picked for me, as well as Mulan inspired books. I was very ambitious that month and I succeeded. I don't know how. I don't think I would be able to do that now. So I was on another one in that month. And you can see my lowest months were both February and December. I read 5 books each month. And yeah, December is just so busy. So much holiday stuff going on, and work picks up like crazy at the end of the year for me. And then February, I think I had a really strong January. I had a full 5-star January. So February, I wanted to like take my time, not force myself into a slump, though I probably did hit a slump, which is why I didn't read that many. But I'm glad I didn't read that much after reading so many great books, though I did get some great books in February. And then kind of the rest are all between like 6 and 9 books, which I guess is kind of my average range. I tried to make these graphics cute by like adding little things like these flying books that look like butterflies ideally, and then like all the dots on the last one, but I don't know if it did its thing. I don't know. I'm not like super happy with these graphics, but I'll get there. I feel like I used to be really good when I used to like design a lot of decks at work previously. I used to be really good at graphic design, and now I feel like I've lost my touch a little bit, but we'll get there eventually. Okay, we have my genre breakdown now, and as you can see, I tried to make a little graphic for each genre, so hopefully it makes sense. But for fantasy, you can see that is my biggest genre. That's 50% of what I read this year. There's 45 books out of that. That's a lot. And then fiction is my second biggest with 24 books at 27%. Horror was surprisingly my third biggest, and that is 6 books. And those also include the 2 graphic novels that I read. Those are definitely more horror based, but you'll see my reading goals include some horror in there as well for 2025. Sci-fi, we have 5 books. Nonfiction, I read 4. I guess I read 4 nonfiction books. Did I? Okay. Now I'm gonna look to see what nonfiction books I read. Oh, I know 3. What's the 4th one? The Anthropocene Reviewed. Okay, yeah, it was 4. I gotta trust my own numbers. And then 3 historical fiction books, and then 1 mystery thriller, and 1 romance book. The romance book was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. That can technically be considered fantasy, but she is a romance writer through and through, so I consider that a romance book. But you know, you can decide for yourself. The 1 mystery thriller one was a short story, What the Dead Know by Niveau, and I don't really know how to classify that one either, but I do think it was mystery or thriller. I don't read a lot of thrillers or mysteries, so when I come across one, I don't know if it's actually one or something else, or like horror or fiction. There kind of is a lot of crossover with those 3, so I do think that one was a mystery thriller though. And so yeah, I am proud of myself for reading 4 nonfiction books, because I don't typically gravitate towards nonfiction. Sci-fi was also surprising. I thought I would read more, but also I'm not as big a sci-fi person as I am clearly fantasy. And then horror, I'm glad, is kind of becoming a bigger genre for me, because I do want to read more from that. And so I'm very happy with these results. I think fantasy will always be my biggest one, but fiction is definitely getting up there for sure. So next we have my star ratings. This one, I feel like I'm being exposed here with how high I typically rate things, and I don't really rate things low, but that's also probably good that I read most of the books that I enjoy. So I had 21 5 stars this year, which I think is a good number. I had 23 4.5 stars, 27 4 stars. 4 stars is definitely like the one I give out the most. It feels like the right, like I enjoyed the book, didn't love it, like had some issues with it, but I still like generally had a good time reading it. So that's what I give out 4 stars for. 3.5 is like I had a few more issues with the book that made me enjoy it less. So there's 8 there, and then only 3 stars, no 2.5 stars, and 5 2 stars. And those are mainly DNFs. I think all 3 of my DNFs 2 stars, and then I think a couple other ones. I think Norwegian Wood is that 2-star category. And then 2 unrated, because I don't rate my graphic novels, because it's hard, because it's like, do I rate based on illustration, like story enjoyment of the both of them? I don't know. I don't read enough graphic novels to really like have a rating on them. So yeah, I think I had a pretty good reading year in terms of star ratings. But like I said in my tier rating video, just because books are rated certain ways, I feel very differently after thinking about them for a while. So some 4 stars have ended up as like greatest of all time, or 4.5 stars have ended as greatest of all time. Some 5 stars have ended up in just like, it was good, it was great, I liked it. So take this with a grain of salt, please. And lastly, for my stats, I wanted to give you an update on my Read Around the World Female Authors Challenge. So I'm going to start with Nigeria because this one I technically read end of last year, but I don't think I've ever talked about it, so we have that one in there. I read My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and it was a weird book, very much. I read this in one day, in one sitting, and I kind of flew through it. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was the best book ever, but I did obviously enjoy it because I read it so fast. But yeah, I think that one's an interesting read. And then starting 2024, the first book I read is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, which is a Belgian author. And I try to do authors that are born, lived in, or writing in the language of the country that the book is set in. Though I Who Have Never Known Men, I can't tell you what the setting is because that would be a spoiler of the book. And so the next one I read was Tender is the Flesh, which is by an Argentinian author, Agustina Basterrica, set in Argentina. And so that one was great. I believe that one was translated from Spanish. Then we have Isabel Allende's The House of the Spirits. It is technically set in Chile, though she never specifically says it, and she's a Chilean author, and I think this was also originally written in Spanish. And then next we have Botswana, which was A Question of Power by Bessie Head, and I read that while I was there, which was really nice. This one was written in English because Bessie Head was born and raised in South Africa and then exiled to Botswana during apartheid, and so she wrote this book in Botswana, and it's based in Botswana, so that's why I picked her, and there's not that many Botswana female authors available, so I went with this one. And then lastly we have Sweet Days of Discipline by Flora Yagi, which I read in Switzerland. This was also written in English, I believe, though Switzerland has kind of 3 to 4 main languages: French, German, Italian, and then I think a more local regional language, which I forgot the name of. But yeah, and then obviously there's other countries I've technically read from, like the UK, Japan, Korea, but none of them have been official books that I've wanted to use for this challenge yet, so that's why those are out of there, and I read from those countries more often than these other ones, so that is why this is my current list at the moment. But yeah, I'm proud. I got 2 African countries, 2 South American countries, and then 2 European countries. So very happy with that progress so far, but I do plan on reading a lot more around the world for 2025. And then lastly, we are finally at our reading goals section. So I will talk you through what my 2024 reading goals were. I made on my own. This was before I created booktube, so it's not very comprehensive, but I'll give you an update on where I landed based on those goals, and then I'll get into what my 2025 goals are. So my 2024 reading goals were starting with be less afraid of starting big books / long series. I am still afraid, but I did do some of that. Like, I started Throne of Glass, which is an 8-book series. I started The Grace of Kings, The Dandelion Dynasty, which is 4 books that are very long books. And I've been reading more long books, I would say, or denser books. So I think I made progress on that, though I still am afraid of starting long series because I clearly didn't make that much progress on Throne of Glass, but you know, I can take my time. Next is read longer books. I think I've been pretty good at that, but I do gravitate still towards shorter books just because I can read more if I do that. But I think I read some chunky books this year. Nothing above, I think 900 pages. So that's fine though. I'm okay with that. And then the next goal was only read if you feel like it. I think I did that pretty accurately. I think that's why some months I had less book counts than others, just because I didn't feel like reading, and I didn't force myself to read. Even when I was filming reading vlogs, I was pretty good about not reading just for the sake of the video or reading. That's why it took me a long time to film some of the reading vlogs, but I think I did that very well. And then lastly was try to mood read more. I think I started out badly because I was planning out so much of what I wanted to read because I had such a big TBR. And I think the first half before I started filming, I was definitely mood reading more, but once I started filming, I wanted to do TBRs, so I felt like I had to stick to those TBRs to like report back to you guys. And then I stopped doing TBRs for a while and just would pick books that I felt like reading, and that worked, but it also didn't work because I still needed some sort of like idea of what I might want to read, so it did then go back to picking out TBRs. So I think I have a good like middle ground with it now, where like I have options to choose from, but I can also pick up whatever I want if I don't feel like any of those in the moment. So I think I'm good with that one. And my 2025 reading goals are, first is reach 100 books if I can. I don't like to set like goals for how many books, but because I got so close to 100 this year, I'm saying like it would be nice if I could reach 100, but I'm not going to be super upset if that doesn't happen, because that means that I read what I felt like reading. And so 100 books is a nice kind of round number for a goal, but not an official like I need to get there goal. I'm not going to just like read a ton of books at the end of the year, like short books or whatever, just to make sure I reach 100. I'm not going to force myself to do that. So the next reading goal is to skip more book boxes. I have 3 subscriptions to book boxes, and I need to skip more because I keep getting books that I don't want to read, and some book boxes have unlimited skips, and I should really utilize those. So I'm going to do a lot of research more now and make sure I'm only getting book boxes of books that I want to read. Though with Fairy Loot, there is very limited skips, so it makes it hard. So I don't know, we'll consider maybe getting rid of that one or not, but I don't know. But yes, I will definitely want to skip more book boxes. Third is stop putting off books that I know I will like. I keep doing this because there's a lot of books that I know I will really enjoy, but for some reason I'm like too scared to read it, or I just like keep either forgetting about it or just be like, oh, I'll read it another time, and just like not reading it. So what I'm gonna try to do in January is read all the books, or I'm gonna try to reach a 5-star January by reading all the books that I've really wanted to read that I didn't read last year. So we'll see how far I get. I think a lot of them will be fiction, which will be interesting. But yes, I want to stop putting up books and just read books that I think I'll like right then and there. And then fourth one is to read more horror. Like I said in my genre breakdown, I really am starting to like that genre and I want to read more from it. And there's a few horror books that are coming out this year that I'm excited to get to. I also want to read another book from Stephen King and some other horror authors. So lots to do in that genre. Reading goal number 5 is to read more short stories from collections between novels. So I have started a short story collection, and because there's so many and they can be very big, I forget about them if I don't kind of read them all the way through. So I want to be good about remembering that I can read a short story like between books, or like if I want, or while reading books, because they're short and I don't have to read all of them at once. So I'm going to try to remind myself to do that more often. Number 6 is finish duologies sooner. And this is because there's a lot of duologies out there now, and I'm in the middle of a lot of duologies, and I'm putting off the second book for so long when I could easily just get that done and finish a complete series, and mark that off my series tracker and all of that. And so and they're meant to be read kind of, close together, except for if you're waiting for them to come out, usually like a year in between. But a lot of the duologies I have are already released, so I should read them faster. And so I'm going to try to finish some duologies that I am in the middle of earlier in the year, so I have more mental capacity for more series. And then last but not least, we have don't force yourself to read something just because other people like it. And I think I learned my lesson this year. I read a few books that were very much hyped by a lot of people, and I just did not click with it as much. So I think I need to remind myself to not always only listen to other people's opinions, like form my own opinions and DNF things if I don't like it, even though everyone says it's great. There's a couple books I wish I DNF'd, but I didn't. And so, yeah, I'm trying not to get on the hype train, but it's also okay to get on the hype train because sometimes you like the same books, but don't only use the hype train for selection of books, which I don't typically do. But yeah, I'm gonna try not to be as influenced as I usually am. And so that wraps up my year in review. I hope you had fun with my graphics and my stats. I know I love a good book stat, and I know some people like book stats as well, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my year and my personal life, the travel, the concerts, as well as my reading goals update of 2024 and my reading goals for 2025. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a very happy new year, and I wish you the best 2025 reading year you've ever had. Or just year in general, and good health and very fun times. So happy new year, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.